Hey guys, Andy N, Spoken Label, back in the house. Yes, now people would notice today, if you're very observant, I have a Christmas t-shirt on here about Christmas Brussels sprouts. So it kind of makes sense what after the tropical weather we've had the last bloody couple of days. It's been diabolical up here. And we're over to see an old friend of ours tonight, and I know he's had absolute hell with the weather as well last day or two as well. We've got my friend and Eric Loveland Heath now. Heath. Now, Eric, how you been keeping, mate? Have you been okay?
We've been okay here. The flood's bad. I can see it from the window. Again, it's a sea view. Uh, take the faulty towers reference there. So the river has encroached across the fields. It's pretty bad in town. There's comes trees down. Ceredigion really got hit badly. And my parents are currently without power as well. So
Indeed.
it's
Now, people wonder we're good mates, and we've known each other for donkey's years, haven't we now? And you were telling me before that they lost the power yesterday, didn't they? Was that right?
So they lost power for 2 hours and then they lost it again at 7, and they are forecast to have it restored by 6. So, yeah, it's been pretty bad in that sense. Quite a few places are without power. It's been a pretty heavy storm.
Yeah, it's just mental the weather at the moment. But no, listen, we're not here to talk about weather. And me and Eric could probably sit here whinging about weather all day between the pair of us because I know what we're like. But yeah, now people wondering, obviously, we met. Ooh, blimey, it was. We became friends, didn't we, when you toured of Epic 45, didn't you? And that was what, 11 years ago, was it? Or was it more
Yeah,
than that?
probably a good while ago. I mean, I remember joining Epi 45 in about, I think it was 2009. Touring with them. We did quite a lot. I think we were into European tours by 2010. Then I released a few things on their label in 2010 as well, two albums, and then we were doing. So we would play gigs in. We played some gigs in Manchester. Then there was also the Miles from Empire gigs. I think we played the was it Night and Day Cafe.
Was Night and Day, yeah.
So
Night and Day, yeah.
yeah,
Was it 14, 2014? That was.
something around that, yeah.
I
And
think right
and
about
so
that one, yeah.
yeah, we'd be touring and we'd be playing quite regularly. And so I remember going up to Manchester, and I think we stayed in a hostel one time, and really really good times. I mean, Elaine Reynolds from the Boats and also from Fieldhead. I remember having really really great times, in clubs and just being younger, I
Oh, we
guess.
all are, right? So, and well, I think I'm 11 years older than you, so I'm getting ancient now. So, but you're still at a good young age anyway.
I'm 41 now. It's
Well, I'm
getting
52. Well, I'm
yeah.
50. I'm going to out myself now. I'm 52, right? Right. So, so, but we don't care. So, but anyway, like, yeah. Now, Eric, obviously, we'll things we want to go through today, but obviously, I suppose you better give people a little bit of an introduction to yourself, where all your creativity came from originally, and then we'll
Yeah,
move on to what you're up to this year.
yeah. Well, I think I probably started with being interested in words in writing when I was at school. I was up in a tiny school in Stiperstones. I think there's 6 people in my year. I was the eldest, and I remember there being a poet called Andrew Fusik Peters who'd been on TV in a program called Wham Bam Strawberry Jam, and he wrote books. He lives fairly locally, and he came up and did some poetry sessions, and I remember being the only person who turned up. So they didn't continue for very long, but I was really interested in prose. I've got some old folders of mine now, been given them by my parents, and there are quite a lot of poems. There's one that did quite well in a competition, I think.
Wow.
And so I was more interested in sort of longer form, not novels, but actually creative writing. And then I carried that on at secondary school, and then I pretty much dropped it for a very long time. I think it was until my late 20s that my sister gave me a bottle of mulled brandy, and I lay in bed at my grandparents, and I just wrote stories. And I had sort of silly little ideas about things like, I mean, it's a true story of the manor up the road having a chambered cairn brought from Ireland. So the stones were brought from Ireland and then reconstructed as a folly, so as an entrance piece, so as a conversation piece. And that's entirely true. It was the Lord was given it by he was over in Ireland, and his friend just said, "Oh, you can have them if you like." And so he just transported them by sea and then river up the Thames, and then yeah. So I was really interested in those sort of strange bits of where it's almost modern mythology and then bringing and lore, and then bringing other things through. And again, stalled. Finally got round to finishing a short story called The Colosseum a few years back. It was really nice, actually. I managed to take that to the museum it's based on, and gave it to them. So that's in Aberystwyth, and that was published as well in Horrified's folk horror online. Well, I say digital compilation. I have then I've mostly finished the rest of the first set of stories, but then I settled down to really finish this lot. We'll talk about the little guidebook that I've done around other bits and pieces of writing, and then music. Sort of just stumbled on it. So I started messing around on my laptop when I got one for college. I remember recording a bass guitar in. I bought it to play with a friend, and I started making ambient music. Developed it, continued, started writing songs, stopped writing songs, all that kind of stuff. Then started running a record label.
Yeah, it's just been. That's what I love what talking like. You're that sort of guy. People get to know you. You've got your fingers in many pies, and I'm the same really. That's why it's like you don't tend to stand still with your creativity. And that's what I've really found fascinating this year because you've told me obviously before we started recording today, like you've done so many projects this year, and it's just
Yeah.
down fact it's just because you and your partner Vicky obviously you run Plenty Wedlock with, like you've just been really organised this year, haven't you? And I think that's what's done it for you really.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly been more organised than the past. The benefit of having about 2 years worth of bedding in helped as well. So we actually had things to make things up from. The ideas could form because we actually had a cardboard case we could work it out on. So things such as, we did something. This is the reissue. This is a brown reissue of it, but this is reflecting. This is my first EP that I
Yeah.
ever
Now,
did back in 20. I think, is it 2007?
yeah, people are wondering,
Something like
Eric's
that.
just show me the card copy of that if you're on the non-video side of it, and it looks brilliant anyway. And
Yeah,
it's yeah,
yeah,
brilliant
but
stuff.
it's so to the people who are not on the video, it's a transparent vinyl cover on the or sticker on the card case, and we used to make the originals a handmade case on and then stain it with a mixture of coffee and tea, and we did that again when we came back with it earlier this year. And it worked really hard on renovating the artwork, which was done. The original picture was taken on a floppy disk digital camera, if you can
Oh
remember those
wow,
ones.
oh, I forgot about
Yeah,
that. Yeah, oh
which
wow.
had a sepia setting, which is where it came from. And then, so we then renovated it. I renovated it digitally and then turned it transparent. And you would not believe, I mean, we made a poster of it. And then when I came to making this transparent, you would not believe the number of times I found a little bit of white in there rather than, the transparent part. So we wanted to make it actually sort of sit away from the background. So yeah, it kind of come full circle in that respect.
Yeah, I think it made really good sense for you to bring that one out this year because I was like, it then helps you think move forward all the projects you've been doing this year. And the first one I want to talk about, because obviously the one where I really caught you out with this one, because was Shropshire number stations. In particular, when you got featured on Lake Junction on BBC's not brilliant program. And I remember messaging about it saying, "Oh, well done for going on Lake Junction. You come back to me." I wasn't where I
Yes.
was on it. That's what I remembered.
No, it's amazing, genuinely amazing. I had this idea of I mean I remember recording some of the earliest ones because a friend of mine just said, you let's try and write some. So I did, and then Dave Bell, friend of ours, just put up he puts up a Twitter post just saying somebody bully Eric to finish his Shropshire Shropshire based number stations. And I thought, okay, I might as well finish it then. So when I sat down to it, it was really interesting to take it slightly differently. I mean, it is broadcast. The majority of that is actually broadcast through radios using transmitters recaptured. I've done two sets now. There was a broadcast in a car down the road. It's taken it's had yeah, it's got legs. But mostly it was just like a hyper local. I mean, so people have often referenced the Kone project, which is probably fair. But the Kane project was a bunch of, a collection of people recording these recordings. And what the beauty of something like the Kane project is that it didn't necessarily need to be what is a number station. It could just be an interesting radio swirl pattern. And and I think when I came to it, I just found it really interesting. The idea of this being a, a, a sort of a circle, a ring of local spies. And so if you take global espionage and make it local, it's going to be a bit rubbish, isn't it? It's going to be people. What are they broadcasting for?
Yeah.
Who are they? Are they sending messages over like your tea's ready? You know, what equipment would they be using? It would be really cheap. So what kind of equipment would they be using? And it's got to the point almost where I guess like a number station could be someone's kid's keyboard being used to create a tone, because that's what's lying around. So
Yeah.
yeah, it did incredibly well, and it's very sort of a hyper local release. It's very self-referential of the area. I think there's a fair bit harking back to maybe well, sort of the 1960s Welsh separatism thing as well, but also modern. I guess there's quite a lot of nationalism around as well. Um, and it just got picked up by Bob Fisher, which was really, really good. He wrote about it in the Fortean Times and in Electronic Sounds, so that was really cool. And Lake Junction got through. And this is a little funny story about Lake Junction, is that someone sent me uh, the because Lake Junction puts up its programs a fair bit before they're actually broadcast, and actually, as I found out, a fair bit before they're written. So they know which tracks they want, but they sort of haven't completely formed it. And so on the I think I can't remember quite when it was it August um, episode?
About then it was
Yeah,
definitely, yeah.
it was Verity Sharp, and it said it was about shortwave broadcasts or something like that, and then in it chopped number stations, and and then we sat there going, okay, so what are they going to do? Are they sort of going to stream it? What are they going to, how are they going to find it? And I got contacted by the producer just saying, oh, how do I get hold of this track? Because it's not on Spotify, it's not easy to get. This particular one, it was a Moore station. And and so I thought, oh, all right, yeah, okay. So I've now seen it sort of start, form, and then so yeah, and then we kept quiet about it, I think, and then it was broadcast. So I'm going to pop it up on the Instagram, the Plenty Wenlock Instagram in about a week maybe. The because I put up a little bit of the actual broadcast, the actual part
Fantastic.
from the program. I'm going to get the bit with Verity in talking about it afterwards as well, just coming from the radio in true number stations fashion.
Oh, you've got to do it. You've got to do it, definitely. And it's like I think it's kind of surprising in some ways, this project. You caught me out when you sent down just I went and got it and I thought, oh, this is really different for you, this. Even like the amount of different projects that you do, and you've now got tell me how many releases have you done so far with the Shropshire number stations? Is it two or three?
There's three.
I thought there's three, yeah.
There's three in that there was a gig only CD for its first live broadcast last year, which then also included the the recording of the first live broadcast as a recording, so that it was very kindly recorded. Um, then there was the album came out, so Shropshire and Mid Wales, the first collection came out this year. We gave it a good run in as well, so that was quite good. And therefore, it's our highest selling CD, and it's a bunch of imaginary number stations. So yeah, then the second live broadcast. Oh, sorry, not the. For that, the second live broadcast, local broadcast was done. Sorry, which was in the back of a car. So what I do is I give the coordinates and the time, and then if anyone's there, and the frequency, if anyone's there, they can tune in. But considering
Brilliant.
it's using a transmitter to only transmit a few meters, it'll probably be fine. There are quite strict rules on how far you can broadcast, by the way. So then there was a second performance, which was the third live broadcast, which wasn't recorded. But for that, there was a special EP of because it was the performance was in Worcester, rural Worcestershire, really near to Drakelow, the underground rover factory, the
I
one
would
that
love to go to.
F45 did the
I
EP.
would
You
love to
can,
go to Traitlow.
yeah, you can do. I think you can still do underground tours of it. So book in. Um, and then yeah, so there was an EP called Kimver and District of five very sort of local um, uh, rural Worcester, sort of that area stations, all, and this is a kind of important point, all sounding a lot clearer and closer because they were captured close as a source. So, yeah,
Yeah,
that was
brilliant.
yeah, popped a few of them up, which didn't sell at the gig, and there'll be more, I think. Yeah, but the volume two, which is going to be called Black Country and Borderlands, hopefully either some point next year or very early the year after.
Fingers crossed, definitely. I'm looking forward to it, mate. Now, obviously, and we've talked about Reflections already getting reissued this year. I was very interested to know, see that you've done a reissue now of Haunted Woodland Volume 2 under a
Yeah.
different name and Longner. Now, what made you want to go back to actually look back at this project again? With people notice with additional tracks as well.
Yeah, I can't take credit for it. It was a conversation I had with Ben Hilton from Epic 45 and Wayside and Woodland. He runs Wayside and Woodland. So yeah, I remember we were just having a discussion, and obviously the well, not obviously anyone who would know from the label, Wayside and Woodland had this Haunted Woodland series, and there were 50 copies of each one of them, and they get swallowed up pretty quickly. And they were quite
Which I've got all four of them to date. Right.
uh, yeah, I've got cases for all four. I think I don't have Charles Vaughan's CD, and I don't think I've got the surfacing one either. I think I've got the case rather than the CD, but I'll sort that. I'm going to burn my own anyway. But yeah, I mean the surfacing was incredible. So it started off with the Toy Library one by Rob Glover's the Toy Library about the if I can't remember correctly, is it the it's White Lady Priory, just on the Staffordshire Shropshire border, near to Weston under Lizard. Really brilliant collection of sort of glitchy. If I remember correctly, some of the glitches are real glitches that the laptop was failing. So there's that. Then there's Mine, which is Haunted Volume Within Volume Two, which is a sort of a look at Longner, the village of Longner, the ghost of the White Lady of Longner, how she affected it. So she would sort of go. Her legend is that she died drowned in the pool, I think, for a broken heart, and then she turned up at the dance floor, so outside the dance floor at parties that were held at the manor. And she catch the eye of an eligible young man, then guide him to the pool, and then just disappear into it or over it, one of the two. And so he would just sort of stand there, being not only freaked out but also, I guess, let down. So she was the ultimate party pooper. And it happened so often they stopped having parties there. So I thought, yeah, you've got a sort of a mischievous ghost, but I wrote it as a sort of almost a soundtrack thing. It's very sort of dense, long form thing. Then Charles Vaughan does Monkswood. The surfacing one's about the ghosts of industry around Nottinghamshire. That's brilliant. There's going to be another one, or at
Two,
least
is it
another two
two?
actually.
Number two
Yeah,
in there. Yeah, 'cause, we won't give away who they are, but I'm aware of two.
yeah,
I don't know what order they're coming in, but I know there's two more on the way.
yeah.
So
They
I've
definitely
heard
are.
conflicting reports of you and also Ben, which order they're
Yeah,
going to be in.
I would bow to Ben. He's going to know more than I do. So anyway, we were having
Possibly.
this conversation, and because it's been, I mean, you could almost view Snail Beach Minds Trust, the album, as being a similar thing. You know, it's sold out pretty quickly, and it hasn't been repressed. Um, that how could it come back? And Ben said, well, it's an album. It's an album of its own. It was part of a series. It was volume two of Haunted Woodland, but in it very much its own album. It's a complete set of tracks, and so we had this thought of how we could bring it back, and I started having this idea of calling it the place. The so Longner, and then being a very simple thing, such as artwork wise, just a black envelope with Longner written in white ink. We had to find the right ink and the right pen, of course.
Of course.
And then it was quite nice to reflect back on the album as well. So it has got the previously secret track on it, and there was another one added called Finale, which will obviously
It's
should end it.
of course, yeah. You
It was a bit
can't exactly do another album and have start off with finale as your
no,
title.
it was a bit
You
odd.
probably would actually, but I can't
Give it
really.
a go. I'll definitely give it a go. Finale and finishes, yeah. It sounds um, very KLF, doesn't it, to start your album with the end,
Yeah, yeah,
or a
definitely.
secret track, yeah. So yeah, the tricky part was that there's a track called Lament, which is the end of the conventional album, then a secret track afterwards, and it ends beautifully. And it actually has some gunshot sounds. I got lost on what is the place called? Hmm, that is a really what is that place? Very very famous place in Staffordshire, Cannock Chase. We got lost in Cannock Chase, and we kept walking towards the sound of gunshots, and I just recorded them and got them on the start of the track.
As
So
you
yeah,
do.
and some beautiful saw playing by Elaine Reynolds as well. So it was tricky to work out how that would that being the conventional end, how we could end it again, and then it went a lot more sort of with the track as it developed. But it was an older idea, and it was developed into again. I think that if you could listen to it, the sounds very Eyes Wide Shut, very much the soundtrack to that film. The Jocelyn Pook tracks, you know, Backwards Monk and things like that, all very sort of I guess gothic, quite stylized, quite classical, modern classical, which is really fun. And it was also, you know, I haven't really gone back into that area for many years, so it was cool to do that. So yeah, we reissued it. It did so well. It sold out the first issue. I mean, it came with some of the older, so a then and now print. So the older, the pictures back from the time it was first released, and then when I was there last year, I think, or maybe the year before. And so that sold out in a day, and so we put together another smaller version, which Vicky put a handprint in. So she printed the white. Vicky played the White Lady of Longner in a video of mine called "Just Show of Ank" for the yeah, it was a single shot video, and she did the inside card stiffeners have got a white handprint on them, but then we had an idea for Halloween to blood one up, so
Ooh.
made it a sort of a very more spooky, but you know, covered in red ink and paint and things. And it was we did a raffle for it and gave it to charity. And it was so someone liked it so much that they asked for another copy to be blooded up and give to charity as well. So you know, really cool ideas. It's really fun to see those kind of things happening. Things that are a bit more bespoke are always more fun, I think.
Yeah, definitely. No, true. No, good stuff, man. Now, obviously, talk about Wayside and Woodland. So we've talked about several times already. I know you've brought out a new EP with them this year, didn't you, as well?
Yeah, that
It
was
was your
very
first one in a while as well, wasn't it? With over there.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I used to be called prolific years ago, but I mean, you probably get that. I think if I remember correctly, it was Snail Beach Mines Trust and Shropshire Hill Country in the same year in 2010.
Yeah,
Then I think Haunted Woodland was either was it 2012? It was, you know, it was pretty quick. Then there was
a few
yeah,
years
there
ago,
was
yeah.
T as well in 2013. Then there was a big gap, work and things like that. But then I put out well through Wayside put out Smiling Leaf, which is an EP in 2018. Then a big break again. I mean, I wrote an album in that time, but I still haven't finished it. And practically, it was difficult to look at how big albums, big things could be released. I mean, Ben will you know, Ben will tell you things changed. It's been very difficult to get things like vinyl. Postage has been ridiculous. Leaving
Seen
the
that.
EU has been incredibly difficult to post. You know, everything is always change, and so it really just came in. I remember writing Cambrian, and I think we had Cambrian in my mind finished a year before we released it, and it was and then when it came to getting it ready to be mastered and everything, just realized how unready it was, you know.
It's
So
not. At
it
all.
was you always do that thing. You always think, oh, the songs are finished, you know, just keep listening to it, that's fine. And then it's not. Like, the volumes are, or you hear a glitch in a track and you've got to fix it, or volume of the vocal, or you know, the fade's not quite right. And so we worked really hard on it. Vicky did an amazing job. of helping me to do the final mixes, and we were really happy with it. Then we did design the artwork. Vicky drew the train. It was coming up with the concept of that. We put the artwork together entirely ourselves, actually, and then sent it to Ben for okay. And then he got some suggestions on text and fonts and things like that, which was really helpful. Got it pressed up, and it sold out. So incredibly happy to have sold out an EP of songs in a mixture of English and Welsh about a train line. Really cool.
Oh, brilliant stuff, mate, indeed. Now, obviously, like I said, back to obviously Plenty Wedlock, obviously, with it.
Oh,
And so,
sorry, just to mention that's
oh,
under EL Heath.
yeah.
That's
Yes, we need to mention that, yeah, because you're going under several names, and there's more names I'm coming up to in a minute just to really confuse matters. But
yes.
yeah, now obviously you've bought out the fourth release this year under with Wildy as well, haven't you? On the
Um,
Plenty Wedlock. Is it the fourth?
I think it might have been the second. I mean, I remember
Been
this
a
is
couple. There's been a couple anyway, certainly, yeah.
marking my own, well, not my own homework, my own mistakes here. I think I remember coming, putting out Wildly and then saying our first release after releasing Reflecting earlier in the year. So it gets confusing sometimes. So Wildly was something that we wanted to put out for years. We've had sat on the shelf for absolutely years. think, I think it it's an entire just it was a whole collection put together, and it's very difficult. I mean, with the relaunch of Plenty Wenlock a few years ago, it started seeming like it could happen, but you still don't want to be putting something out where, I mean, we got this one pressed up professionally, and you don't want to be putting something out where you think you're going to sell potentially 10, 15. So you hold it back until you think that there might be an audience. And yeah, it's a beautiful, long, sort of tangerine dream-esque uh, meditation, I think, on mountains, on the countryside, on sort of rituals, all sorts of things. Really, really pretty. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
just a self-titled album by Wildly.
Yeah, it's a great album. I've really, really enjoyed that, this one, John. I think it's been Wildy's best release to date, if I'm honest with you. But the other ones have been great. This felt like it was definitely really, really good and
Yeah,
great
Wildly's
release.
gone through a few. I mean, the Black Nun was probably the most uncompromising thing we've ever done. And then a
Yeah,
bit of a gap.
that was pretty full on that Black Nun EP for 2015. That's for sure of
I
it.
still want to put one. I still want to put a few more together just to see if anyone's interested in them.
Yeah.
But yeah, then with Munif to Ultara, sorry, last year, which is a lovely little EP of distressed kind of basically the if I get it, the concept of walking up a hill and then finding a radar station in some disrepair that shouldn't be there. It's not on maps, just yeah.
Oh God, yeah. No, it's just that's what's fascinating what your work is like is the work you're involved in, you bring out and Plenty Wedlock. It's all everything's its own beast, I think, sometimes each project. And some of them go back longer and longer, and I've parents probably realised because like you finally bought out your fragments, didn't you, EP at number one, I will state at the end of the year. And I remember you sending me some of those pieces to have a check on the second opinion on what over lockdown was it?
Yeah, it would definitely be on lockdown. I remember starting it in 2020. Basic sort of point of not being able to sit down and do anything. I mean, if you don't know you can put anything out, why would you do anything? So I effectively just sat down, set some equipment up, and then just worked on playing around with sounds until, and this is, I think, an important point, finding something good in it, something unique in it. And when you feel, when you are feeling something inside, when the world's going to hell and you are feeling incredibly low, it means something. Those tracks, if I listen back to them, they are sort of a bit of warmth, a bit of yeah. So it's like brightness and detail. They're very emotional for sort of sequenced tracks. But what I would do is I'd sit down and I'd work on an idea and I'd always delete the first one, and it would be about an hour in. So I'd sometimes walk out of the room and come back in again and just see, and then I'd try and grab a sort of a performance of it. And I remember someone getting through to me, which is incredibly humbling, to say that he was listening to it, and then he drove around to a supermarket car park, and he just sat there and let it finish because he couldn't get out of the car until it finished.
Oh
And I
wow.
thought that's amazing for a bunch of instrumental tracks. It's about 22 minutes long.
Yeah,
Initially,
fantastic.
I wanted 12 because I kind of almost viewed it as a sort of month thing, but it didn't work out like that. And there are going to be 4 volumes. The second volume is pretty much finished. So yeah, mainly a kind of sort of a concern that it was a little bit too inward. But when it came out, we made a real effort with it. It's got the CD and artwork, and then it's got a fragment of the actual artwork cut in half.
Oh,
You
that's
would not
clever.
believe how hard that is.
Yeah, I could probably guess. I can
Well,
probably
well,
guess.
well, volume two's got to go into 3 pieces.
Oof.
So
Just to make life harder for yourself, then basically go along.
yeah, and onwards, yeah.
Good man. Good man. Right, yeah. Before we come on to publications, and I like that word publications. I think the last one of your releases on the music side of things, unless I've forgotten something, is your Christmas single that you've just brought out under the
Yeah,
aquarium. Now, I've heard this name. You've told me this name before, and it might have been on the track of it might have cropped up one of my old DAH albums of
it did, yeah.
friends. Yeah, but like I said, it's great and it's brilliant this and I've got to say, you weren't the first. I've been whammed this year already, so I couldn't get away with hearing your version of Wham last Christmas. Somebody had really got me in it, right? But I wish they hadn't because I could have turned around and said, "Oh, Eric's whammed me this year, not with his version of it." But yeah, tell us about what's made you want to bring this EP out this Christmas? Because I think it's been dragging around for a while, this EP, in one way or another.
Yeah, so it's all right if you've heard my version, you're safe because it has to be the original.
Yeah.
And it has to, and I don't know. This is the problem with Whamageddon is I don't know whether I've won or lost because I had to listen to the original um, before the start of December. So I think I'm probably safe. But I don't know. There's something. So to go back to the antiquarian project I started over a year ago, and the idea was to sort of focus on the past and sort of textures of the past, things like that. I constantly have this idea, sort of like vague daydream of finding music at the back of a drawer and what it would sound like 30 years later. Imagine what music would sound. Can you make music that would sound like it has been in a drawer for that long? Because I know I've found tapes that sound similar, and also the melodies and things like that being quite archaic. So I mean, the antiquarian itself, I want to do an album of things that are originals, but it's more of a mindset. So yeah, I did a track for your compilation last year. One of the ones from this EP will be on your compilation as well, if hopefully.
Oh, it will
Um,
be. Oh, it will
oh,
be. I
good.
loved it. I loved it. Right. No danger in
So
that
yeah,
one.
the yeah, so I did a track which was actually it was a version of the Marvelous Toy by I think it's Tom Paxton, if I remember correctly, which is a sort of strummy American little Christmas song, done in the almost sounding like Raymond Scott, who was an early electronics guy. He did an absolutely terrifying album called "Soothing Sounds for Baby," which is supposed to be sort of to get your kids to go back to sleep. Go to sleep to, but it actually sounded radiophonic, workshop, and all that kind of stuff. Um, and sort of mid-era Aphex Twin as well, with all the sort of little strings and the kids' instruments and stuff. And it developed really beautifully. And so I wanted to sort of follow that up. And one thing came to another, and we sort of didn't get round to it until about a month ago. And then when we sat down, because Vicky was involved in it, it just came together beautifully. It came together in one evening. And we came together in a way that I didn't quite expect. So I've wanted to, for some absurd reason, cover Wham's Last Christmas. So I just wanted to. It's a really good melody. Very. You've heard it too many times, of course, but it's beautifully upbeat and it's quite nostalgic. And I just thought, what would it sound like if it sounded like Blade Runner? Yeah, it does. There's a sort of a Blade Runner soundtrack style version of Last Christmas called Past Christmas. There's a very haunted version of I'm Dreaming of a White Christmas done in the style of Christmas in Your Heart, which is a vinyl record we got downstairs, which is absolutely knackered and is Wurlitzer versions of Christmas songs and is so out of tune and so distorted. that it sort of went into I'm dreaming of a bleak Christmas. Very caretaker kind of title there.
Oh God, yeah.
And um, also, yeah, and the first one was a sort of, I don't know, kind of like cluster covering or taking the sort of German electronic, taking the melody from the little drummer boy, and making it sort of, instead of having the bum 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 bit, just sort of holding on the beauty of the melody and making it really, yeah, kind of meditative. So it's a really good EP called so it came together as a really good sort of collection of tracks, almost like a statement of intent. Called Christmas, up for charity, up for the Seven Hospice. So all the profits are going to that. I think we're up to about 50 quid now. So it's staying open until the end of the year.
Really. Yeah,
Um,
get it, everybody. It's worth it. It's really it's a beautiful EP in a disturbing way, right?
well, yeah, and what was really nice as well is it got picked up by Neil Mason at Moon Building, who did a sort of a Sido review and interview with me about it, which is lovely, and I think really digs into it. So go and find that. Moon Building Weekly is he's on Substack.
Yeah, brilliant. Because I'm on Substack myself, and I enjoyed reading it before. And I was looking at it this morning, and I saw a reference to the new EP by the Black Dog as well. And I love it
Oh, well,
anyway. Yeah.
did you see the reference to the friend whose compilation inspired the project? That would
Oh
be
no.
you.
Oh. Oh.
It,
Yeah.
well,
See.
you were inviting me. I remember Charles Vaughan doing. I think it was it Silent Night
It
or
was.
something.
Yeah. 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 Oh, I was. Yeah. I've gone back. Forgot
Oh,
about that.
was
Yeah.
it Silent Night? It was
It was
incredible.
some. It was something like that, and it was absolutely astonishing track.
No,
It did. Yeah.
no, I think Ben covered Silent Night in a really beautiful kind of very, very close mic version. I think there was another. Yeah,
Oh.
but yeah, we would all sort of put together ones. I did Winter Wonderland,
That
you
was it,
know.
yeah. Good, yeah, I've got, yeah, of course, Ben did do one of mine, my Ultimate Empire, yeah, it was Silent Night. And
Yeah,
yeah, then Charles Vaughan cropped up, was it the year after? I can't remember. Anyway, you know, time flies and you get old and I forget. Yeah, of
yeah.
course, yeah. Right, now, obviously, we're going to get onto, this is, obviously, a spoken label is known for its publication and its reading material. I think we need to go on to next. Obviously, I could really drop Ben in this, but I'm not going to.
Go for
We'll
it.
talk about Landnotes next, right? Now, which obviously is a zine that Wayside and Woodlands are bought out with accompanying CD as well. It's beautiful stuff. Now, obviously, which Eric is on
Yeah,
in
there's a little.
both the music, yeah, music wise and the publication side.
Well,
And you told, yeah,
there's a number station on there, isn't there? There's I Betsy Wheel, which is it's a little reference Ben should get there.
yeah, yes, there is, and obviously, like I said, it's obviously there's several bits of pieces on there that are relevant to Plenty Wedlock. Definitely, it's actually Wildly's on there as well in the
Yeah,
music side of things, and obviously, like I said, Shropshire is as well, and it's a great music to listen to. But we're here really to talk about, obviously, with Eric's involvement on the zine, your first piece of non-fiction, wasn't it?
if I remember correctly, yeah. Certainly my first focused non-fiction essay. So it was. I think it sort of sits in the middle of the book as well, which is really nice. And followed by a really brilliant little article as well. Well, not essay as well by Jen Dixon. I think that they both sort of they both work on slightly different angles of similar things, really.
It is, yeah, it
Um,
does.
really, really lovely. So yeah, my essay's about borders, and having lived on a border most of my life. I mean, I've in Snail Beach and where I live now, always been a few miles from the border. The sign's always been English and Welsh. It's just, I remember driving. My parents would drive me to a place called Harry Tuffin's, which is where it would have. I mean, it still does have a car boot sale on Sundays, and you would cross the border, I think, 3 times. It just weaves across. You go down to Churchstoke and sort of you'd go across the border several times. So yeah, I focus really on not only what borders are, but also the experience of living on a border, referencing a bit about being able to walk uh, during the lockdowns, being able to walk over the border by going through a gate at the top of the hill. Amazing. There's a gate up there. This is the border. And yeah, I think that there's also a little bit. The comedian Andy Zoltan would jokingly mention that Offa's Dyke had been reactivated, and so I started looking up again about because I've known about Offa's Dyke. I mean, there's Watts Dyke as well,
Mm.
but Offa's Dyke to the casual observer, is a wall keeping possibly protecting Wales? And actually, it was that King Offa was a pagan Mercian, I think, king who wanted to keep the Welsh out. So you've got, it's not a Welsh defense; it's a defense against the Welsh. And then on to, I guess, also aspects of how Celtic cultures have kept. I mean, definitely that there's say Cornwall and you've got Wales, and how that they stay separate. The language stays separate or split because of the change of pronunciation in the 15th century, but also the who basically has taken over England at different points in time. So yeah, it was really fun to delve into that and spend some time in it.
It's an excellent article. The full scene's excellent. The full project is, and I know hopefully I'm going to be on number two, and hopefully you will be as well, Eric, as well for that.
Yeah, hopefully. It's an incredibly beautiful thing. I mean, hats off to Ben, hats off to Jen for the incredible artwork and her work on it as well. I mean, the artwork, the front cover is just amazing. Her work where she splits, just cuts things up and splits them. The collages, they're incredible. Then there's is it Holly Brodie, brilliant artist. I remember talking to Ben about finding her work. It's this house down a road and then some markings on the road. Brilliant. Then there's Ian Sargent. It's just Rob Glover's account of the Beacon. Absolutely brilliant. Just great to see people reflecting on the landscape.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's great. It's a great art, a great one. Now, obviously, now this is where we get clever now for the last part of the current publications is I've got volume one of Eric's debut collection, and Eric's going to show what. Let's see if we can synchronize it, Eric. See if I show version one, you show version two.
Well, it's
A
so yeah,
guide to Plenty Wenlock.
yeah. So you might see slight subtle changes. Yeah. So this is the second pressing of it. We didn't expect in any way to be able to sell out the first edition or the first pressing of it. Sorry, they're exactly the same. Um, but we did, and we did that in a matter of months. I think it caught into the folklore zine scene, which I haven't really ever really stepped into, and a huge thanks as well to Cormac Pentecost from Temporal Boundary Press for giving us a good word as well, which helped with sales. So yeah, his zines are fantastic. He did some beautiful ones, which certainly on he did the Detectress zines, which are absolutely stunning pieces. Really beautifully done things. So yeah, I've put this out, a guide to the lore of Plenty Wenlock, this year. I think it was September, and with no promotion, no previous mentions, kept it entirely quiet. Didn't tell a soul really that I was doing it, other than very few people. No one else really knew I was going to do it, and then we finally found that. I mean, it wasn't going to happen for a while because we didn't know that the printers would be able to work with us to get we get a quote that we could afford, for example. And then when it became a reality, I went and got the books. We put them up, sold pretty well. Then another batch came, sold, and then we sold our last a few weeks ago, and so we got another pressing done, which is selling as well, which is fantastic.
Brilliant stuff. Now, obviously, we have to talk about where the idea for this came from.
Yeah, okay. So it's a sort of a confused journey, probably leading from the Shropshire Hill Country album, which is a sort of an oral guidebook. So it's not not a guidebook in words, but a guidebook in sounds about places that you would mostly not go and think are touristy in Shropshire. So a slightly skewed way of viewing the tourist parts. I mean, a reflection of living in a touristy area, but also seeing the things like there's a radio telescope. It's Shropshire has one radio telescope, and it's right next to a cricket club I used to play for. So developing on that with just these little stories. I think the nature of growing up in Snail Beach, and hearing the tale of Wild Edric, you just hear stories around. I grew up in a lead mine. You would hear stories about the miners dying, um, all sorts of things, and it would always be done in a certain way, which would be someone would tell you them, and it would probably not be the same way that someone else told you them, and someone else would write it down, and someone would write it factually. I mean, Shropshire Hill Country, the book by Vincent Waite, is again a very conversational one where he sort of again writes about his perspective on certain things. So I was really fascinated by the fluid nature of myth and lore and the way that people would tell you these stories and how they become quite personal to them. So either they would have added something or someone would have told them it and it became part of the family way of telling it. And so I created a sort of a guidebook to the lore of Plenty Wenlock, which is the label. Well, not the label, the project. It's a bit of a guidebook to me, my upbringing, to the label, to the releases, to the music that I've released in the past. Um, it's a very sort of circular thing, leading from that point where it so it is true. There's a lot of truth in the book. It's that there are. I'm trying to bring out things that people may not necessarily know about Shropshire and Mid Wales. Some of it's embellished and some of it's downright lies.
We're not going to tell people which are truth and which are embellished, which are downright lies. We'll let them work it out for themselves, Eric. Right?
Absolutely,
No,
and that's the beauty of it is that the more ridiculous ones are probably true.
yeah. So like I said, that's all we're going to reveal about that, guys. But it's excellent. Really is worth your time tracking this one down.
So this is through Plenty Wenlock Press, which is we're going to do a second edition next year of new law. I keep messing around with this stupid idea, and I'm not going to do it. Of in Photoshop, just putting it's on these. At the back of it, you have like a bar that goes across. Like
Oh yeah.
pound 99p or something. And I'm just trying to work out what the best text to say. Bursting with even more law or further law, or simply bursting with law. Yeah. I don't know what you could do with that. So yes, that will be hopefully next year. It's well on the way. We're also going to do some actual sort of not actual. We're going to do some books with local authors as well. So we really want to work on. There's a book we've been trying to work on for years with Dr. Jack Hunter, who's a friend of mine, also plays in Shut the Button, and Mascot Moth now, who has got a lot of research on the ghost. Sorry, no, sorry, the fairies of the Tanat Valley, where he lives and has lived most of his life. So, sort of delving into these guidebooks, but also books by authors on the area, on mythology and things like that. So, I'd really like to see that develop, and some non-fiction as well.
Brilliant. Yes, keep us informed on that one, mate. Now, obviously, I'm conscious of the time in this now in part one, because obviously I've got to try and keep it below an hour each part.
Okay.
So, but obviously, you've got a few. Is there any music projects you can reveal are happening next year? Because I've seen on that certain Substack page before, there could be 15th anniversary reissues, couldn't they, of two
Yeah. So
albums?
yeah, we're hoping to. So the as mentioned earlier, Snail Beach Mines Trust, my first album on Wayside and Woodland, probably the first full album of you know uh, I'd say as Winter Shine Track was the first album I did, but uh, this was the first physical album and the first thing that I really put out, and I think started a chain that then led to where I am now. Um, that's going to be reissued. Hopefully, as a extended. There was a basic idea of doing an EP, and some of the tracks from that will be included. It's going to be remastered. It's been remixed. I've gone back through the files and mixed them down again. Just brought out more detail, which I think is lovely. And then also as a special extra, a mixture of field recordings from the time, so lots of clanks. So you can end your album with lots of clanks. So there's that. Yeah, the Shropshire Hill Country still as a book. Hopefully a bit more, maybe a few physical versions of it as well. Again, book coming as a sort of as a joint project with Plenty Wenlock and Wayside and Woodland, being a sort of someone finds the album and then uses it as a guide and then writes the book and sends the book to me and then we publish it. So yeah, again, it'll be interesting. It's a lot of work, but yeah, there's a few other things as well. So the reason why it's a 15th anniversary is because 2020 was the 10-year anniversary, and no one ever wanted to do a 10-year anniversary in 2020. Not the way it turned out. Yeah, it wasn't.
True.
I couldn't actually get CDs and sell them, so good luck with that. And there's Speed of Life album, which it's about American TV stations going off air and their themes, which would be fascinating. Hopefully another wildly one, potentially around solstices. So yeah, it could be
This,
very full.
yeah, I'd be disappointed after this year if it wasn't full, Eric, honestly, right? So, said like, so, no, great. But keep us informed, mate, as I know you will. So, and obviously, plug time now for you, matey. So, where can, first of all, people get hold of all your releases? Where do you recommend they go to?
Okay, so the older releases are mainly released through Wayside and Woodland, but also thanks to Ben and Rob. We're also available on Plenty Wenlock. So there's Plenty Wenlock Bandcamp .com. It's Plenty Wenlock Press as well, which is a big cartel site, which is where you can get the book. You can get the book on the Bandcamp site as well. We're sort of spreading it across, but we like to the idea that Plenty Wenlock Press is a slightly different thing, and it's got a slightly different logo and that. So and what we've had a pretty good sales on Friday, last Friday, which is the Bandcamp Friday. So we've got the Reflecting 10 of these. Got the Clouds in the Shape of Clouds reissue, which is
But I've got the
10 years
original
on.
that. I've got the original that.
Yeah,
It's such a good EP, that is.
yeah. And this one's got the previously bonus tracks included as well, with slightly more sort of polluted artwork because we're 10 years on.
Okay.
So yeah, that bunch of other stuff, number stations, a few other bits and pieces.
Brilliant. No, good luck
Oh
with it,
yeah, and
mate.
also yeah, the usual things, the social media. So we're on Blue Sky more than we're on Twitter at the moment. It's a much nicer place, and Instagram for Plenty Wenlock. And also, if you want to go on to e.l.heath on Instagram, that's where I put up my photos most of the time.
Brilliant.
So
No, good stuff, mate.
views of the area.
Good stuff, mum. So, right, people, that's the end of part one. So, we're going to let Eric catch his breath for a second, and we will come back. He's going to read a couple of extracts out for us from various works. So, looking forward to it. Been a pleasure, mate, today. Really, really enjoyed this. I knew it would. So,
Cheers.
see you all in two shakes of the dice.